I didn't know how to be a mother until I lost my own. In March of 2003, I was riding passenger in my mother's car as I rubbed my pregnant belly. We talked about motherhood, and I'd shared that I'd want more. My mother took a deep breath before she warned me that if I were to have another child anytime soon, that I'd have to make my own way. I was single, living at home, and just shy of 19 years old at the time. The seriousness of her tone took me off guard. A heavy weight settled on my shoulders, but I understood, taking her sharp words to heart. As we talked, she reassured me that with my next child, years from now, if she had anything to do with it, I'd share in the experience with my husband. But in that moment, my mother was there. She was my pillar, and she was my strength. A month later, Aiden made his debut despite the tears, the fears, and the sleepless nights of wondering if I was doing right by this new life. He was perfect, and I wasn't sure what exactly to do with him. But as the African proverb states, it takes a village to raise a child, and I had my village, my mother. When Aiden began to talk, he had taken to calling my mother Lala, and she adored him as much as he adored her. Raising my child under my mother's watchful eye wasn't always unicorns and rainbows. We had our share of disagreements, especially over discipline. Yet, she respected how I wanted to parent, although I still wanted her approval, even if she didn't agree. In May of 2006, my mother had been complaining for weeks of stomach pains before she turned yellow from head to toe. She finally checked herself into the hospital. Her diagnosis? Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She began intense chemotherapy. She lost her hair and her big hips. The transition was surreal. It felt like a living nightmare. But from that point forward, she loved deeper, she spoke sweeter, and gave forgiveness she'd been denying. With her treatment, the acceptance of her diagnosis settled in, and she made the decision to carry her head high. The following May, while I was working at Starbucks, I had an unfortunate accident involving a misplaced 5-gallon Cambro. There was fear I may have concussion, but it wasn't so severe emergency services needed to be called. Corporate insisted I be checked out, so I called my own emergency services, my mother. She was feeling better those days. She picked me up and made sure I was taken care of while I recovered. Aside from coming to the aid of her daughter, she spent as much time as she could with her family, with her friends, and she even began volunteering at the hospital she had left after 35 years on staff as a registered labor and delivery nurse, a career she loved. In the last few weeks of her life, there weren't words for what needed to be said. All I could sputter out one night was, "I'm so sorry, Mom." She took my hand and looked me in the eye and said, "Amelia, don't say I'm sorry, just say I love you." December 14th, 2007, I held my mother's hand as she took her last breath and kissed her goodbye. My world shattered, the pieces were everywhere, and it took all the strength to grieve her death. But she wouldn't have wanted her death to define me. She would have wanted me to find my passion, to fall in love with a man deserving of my heart, and to raise a beautiful family. So, I began volunteering at a resource and crisis helpline, which led to a career in suicide prevention that I am so passionate about. Helping others has helped myself heal. In 2009, I met Adam, and we fell in love quickly and married after just 9 months. When I gave birth to our first child, a bouncing, beautiful, and healthy baby boy, Austin, he held my hand and stood by my bedside and was terrified this child would rip me in two. Adam cried with relief. He kissed me deeply and looked at me as if I were the most beautiful woman on earth. I had found my partner, my husband, and the father of my children as my mother had predicted. This time it was different. This time I had taken all that I had learned and observed from the most loving of mothers that had ever raised me. She loved her family, her friends, her life, including the sorrow, but mostly the joys. My mother had been by my side through thick and thin, even while at her worst. People say you don't know what you've got until it's gone. The truth is, you knew what you had, you just never thought you'd lose it. I lost my mother, but in the process of grieving, I gained a gift only she could give me. the gift of knowing how to live, how to love, and how to be the best mother I could be. Thank you.